A lot of you asked how to make learning fun. A lot of you think it's not possible, but no matter where you are, you can make your studying and work more enjoyable. So here's how I think of it. There are 4 levers. There's your natural interest, there's how useful what you're doing is, there's the quality of your learning plan, and then there's productivity tricks, which apply mostly across domains. We're going to go over each of these, show how it affects your learning and your studying, how to raise them, and what you to do if you're stuck in a horrible situation, such as school, for example, where you don't have much control over whether you can raise them or not. All right, so first is natural interest. And honestly, this one is the hardest to raise. If you don't have an interest, you don't have an interest. And so if you're studying on your own and your interest is down here, just don't. Study something else. And if you're in a job and your natural interest is down here, well, if it's a part of your job, just a small part, and you like the rest, then suck it up, do it. But if it's a big part of your job, maybe start trying to switch careers or find a way to do less of that sort of work and more the sort of work you enjoy. And that's where, studying outside of work hours can come in. But there's also undiscovered interests, things where you think your interest is around here, but your actual natural interest is around here. And so that's pretty magical if you can discover an interest. In some ways you can do that is you can look within the subject, and this is harder if you're in school where they tell you exactly what to study. But you can look within the subject and find the parts that appeal to you. Or you can watch channels like 3 Blue 1 Brown where, you're not really learning the thing, but it gets you excited to learn the thing. There are also other tricks, which once again, this is not going to take you from here to here, but it can take you from here to maybe here. Overload on caffeine. This is not healthy. I do not recommend you actually do this, but if there's something you absolutely need to study and you're interested down here, caffeine will make whatever you're looking at more interesting. It's just a chemical property of what it does. It's also possible that your natural interest was suppressed by bad learning plans and not understanding how to be productive. Because if you think you're bad at something, then your interest will go down over time because you think, well, why would I do this? I'm terrible. And so it's possible you bump up the learning plan, you do a couple productivity tricks, and you find out you actually are interested. And this is common for things like math, where the typical learning plan is just down in the gutter. Use Math Academy, by the way. And so, natural interest, it's great if you have it, raise it, or switch subjects if you can. But if not, there are these other 3 levers, and we'll talk about how to pull them. So usefulness, this one, it's how much benefit it gives you. And so if it's at 0%, don't do it. That's easy. And there's cases where, all these are high, video games, for example. And so, you can do it if it's fun, if you have time. I wish I had more time to do this. But if your interest is low and all these are low, just don't do it if it's not useful. However, there are situations where the long-term usefulness is low, but you got to pass a class or your boss wants you to do it. So the short-term usefulness is very high, but the long-term usefulness is very low. And that's a little trickier. For the school situation, I'd say first try to bump up all these other ones as high as you can, and then find the minimum effort to get the grade that you need. And for some people, that's always an A. For some people, that's a B or a C. The amount of effort you need to get that, and then you're done for life. For work, once again, if it's a small part of your job, then, try to cut it out or try to work around it. But sometimes that's not possible. And, there are things in life you got to do that you don't want to do. But if it's a large part of your job, talk to your boss, try to figure out a way that you can understand their perspective on why they think it's useful, because they're probably not dumb and telling you to do things that are completely useless. It could be that they misunderstand the situation and you can correct it, or you misunderstand the situation and after the talk, then suddenly the usefulness will be over here. And, unless it's part of your long-term career goals, it's not going to get to 100, but it can be raised. There's also an extremely common pitfall for usefulness, which is you trick yourself. If your natural interest is high and the usefulness is here, then you're like, it's actually really here. And this is what I did with some of the math courses and subjects I did last year studying. Like, I was really interested in them, and so even though they were like this for my career, I convinced myself they were like this. And conversely, if you have no natural interest in something, you may, even though if it's really good for your company, career, customers, then you may think it's actually here, but you think it's here. And so just be careful. And when you're thinking about it, make sure you understand how useful it actually is. The next lever to pull is the learning plan. And this one, assuming that you're not in school with the book assigned to you and they micromanage every little thing, then you have a lot of leeway over. You can take it from here to here. And so if you have a good textbook, a good online resource, a good O'Reilly book, these are amazing. So what makes a resource really good? So first, clear explanations. Second, and this is probably the most important, things are ordered in the correct way. So you start with the simple stuff and then you do the stuff that's more complex on top of that and keep on going. So you're never biting off too much at once. And finally, having exercises that build on each other. And so by the end, you are very confident in that you can actually do what you're trying to learn. One resource, which is especially interesting to computer science students or working software developers, is today's sponsor, Codecrafters. They have lots of courses where you build important components of the developer ecosystem, such as Redis or Git or an HTTP server or even your own interpreter. And each of these are split up into small lessons of slowly building difficulty. And it gives you enough handholding so you're never stuck, but it doesn't do it for you. You have to work so you learn. And you can do it in a ton of different languages. You can either do it in a language you're familiar with if you want to focus on what you're learning through the contents, or you can do it in a new language if you want to learn that language. And one really interesting thing they do is they'll ask you how experienced you are with the language in order to determine how many different language tips they'll give you. For learning plan, I'd give it 100. And so if you're interested in it and it's useful to you, then go ahead and sign up for Codecrafters and use the link in the description. And if money is tight, they do have one free every month. It changes every month. So you can go ahead and give it a try for free. Finally, there's productivity tricks. And this is what people reach for first a lot of the time. And there's a lot of content on the internet about these. So I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time. I'll just share some of my favorites. So there's the Pomodoro timer and similar timing tricks. So you work for 25 minutes, you rest for 5. And this is great because it means each work session has a concrete end time. On an 8-hour day or even a 2-hour study session, it seems like it can stretch out forever. And it's easy to just, start looking at your phone for a little bit. 25 minutes, very concrete, it's doable, and it happens to line up with your meeting schedules and your natural attention span, which for most people is like 25 minutes. Second is movement. You want to move during your break because you're looking at a book or a computer screen, and you're just not going to think very well if you do that for 10 hours straight. So move during your breaks, maybe have a little treadmill desk, and during the longer breaks, go outside. There are lots of ways to get the blood flowing. Health-wise, it's not as ideal as actually being active all day, but you can improve it a lot. Third, you can do artificial rewards. You can, give yourself a little piece of chocolate after a successful math problem. You could, after you complete something, let yourself watch an episode of a show you like. These, you can get one of those habit RPG apps where you give yourself experience points. The downside of these is they are very easy to cheat on, and so they often don't work for very long. But I thought I'd mention it because they do work for a little bit sometimes. But really, the best 2 productivity tricks. The first one is clearing out distractions, making space and time where this is what you're going to focus on. And second, it's to max out all these other ones so that you're actually interested and you have a very smooth path to do what you're wanting to do. And you can help, there is a trick to help with that, which is help you remember it, which is at the beginning of each session, write down what you want to do and why it's useful. So that's the trick part of it. So I hope this is helpful. If you have more questions, let me know in the comments and tell me what's worked for you and what hasn't worked for you. And I'll see you next time, hopefully soon with more actual technical content.